Well, I am fired up right here in the flesh on the Rich Eisen Show, star of the new movie Free State of Jones, premiering June 24th. The Oscar and Golden Globe winner, big Texas Longhorn fan, Washington Redskin fan himself, Matthew McConaughey. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Rich.
So, Redskins, because I know all about the Longhorn fandom.
That makes sense.
Well, I've heard that. You are well known and attached to the Longhorns, but where does the fight for old DC?
Fight for old DC. Where's that come from? That comes from being 4 years old, watching Westerns with my dad on our 3-channel Zenith.
Nice.
And rooting for the Indians instead of the Cowboys and Westerns for whatever reason. So I became a Redskin fan. We lived outside of Dallas.
Oh, my gosh.
We lived 2 hours outside of Dallas. So I was the only Redskin fan in Longview, Texas, and damn sure the only Redskin fan at the 50-yard line at Texas Stadium with a headdress on, a chamois wrapped around my waist, painted burgundy, rooting for the Redskins. So you had then John Riggins, big fan of the Diesel named Desire, Mr. October, big fan of the Hogs, Joe Gibbs, who's boy, he could run an organization, and he still is running great organizations in NASCAR. The Fun Bunch, and then around 6, now again 6 years old.
Yeah.
Why, you like a team because it's Indians versus Cowboys. You like the Indians. Also, when your favorite food's hamburgers, and they have a middle linebacker, number 55, Chris Hamburger.
Yeah.
That's another great reason to like your team. So it started with hamburgers and liking Indians versus Cowboys.
And so what was it like, though, being somebody growing up in Texas, being such an unabashed Redskins fan amidst the whole Cowboy nation, America's team?
America's team.
What the hell was that?
Yeah, well, I was the only one. There happened to be, I knew one other guy. His name was Scott Smith. Scott, if you're out there, you know what I'm talking about. He was a Redskin fan. I actually just sent him some Redskin gear that I got from Dan Snyder a few weeks ago. Look, the Cowboys fans at that time weren't like the reputation that the Eagles fans or something have. I mean, the Cowboys fans were, I remember, Dorsett or Emmitt Smith, it would be a little Lawrence Welkian until
like a golf clap,
until they got into the end zone, and then they get. So there was no. Plus, I was young, so they weren't going to throw anything at me. But I would get pretty rowdy.
So it wasn't ugly, is what you're saying?
No, they weren't ugly to me. No.
Well, and so what do you think of the current state of the Redskins right now?
I like where we're going. I really like where we're going. I like this latest acquirement of Norman. I, like you, I think a lot of people's first reaction was, oh, geez, is Dan doing it again? Remember we went after Stubblefield and Dion when they were in the Thursday night, Friday morning week of their career.
I like joking with Dion that he's still dead money on the Washington Cap somehow right now. Yeah.
But Dion, you look so good in that suit when we introduced you.
That's true.
And who was the other guy that came out of Tennessee? Hainsworth. A lot of cash went there for no play. But those were players that were arguably on the Thursday, Friday side of the week of their career. Norman's, let's call it Tuesday at lunch, on the week of his career. Plus, I think Norman has this. I don't know him well, but I think he has that thing you really want. That I think he wants to be the greatest.
We've had him on this show many times. He's one of my favorite guests. He's got a personality.
Yep.
But he can talk the talk, but he walks it.
Yeah.
He can walk it, and he takes that sort of pride in being a guy that can walk it.
I like that.
And you need that guy, certainly when you're taking on Odell Beckham now twice a year. And we saw what happened when the two of them faced off with the Giants and the Panthers this year. Twice a year. Yes. And so it makes it more interesting. And Kirk Cousins is kind of on the opposite end of that swagger spectrum.
Yeah.
Although he did scream like you like that at some point last year that a lot of people sort of got into that. Cousins says he has the potential to be a self-made man here. He's got this opportunity.
Yeah, he does. And, what we did in the draft also tease him up well, getting Doxson out of TCU. A lot of people probably thought we were going to pull Ashawn Robinson off the board or something, but no, we went offense. So it's all teed up for Cousins to succeed. The pieces are there. I like where we're going as an organization. And, I always saw the Redskins and the 49ers were great. What's the last sort of, what's the word? The Patriots are the Patriots, the Packers.
The dynasty?
Dynasty. So you had the Niners and the Redskins arguably in the 90s, right?
True.
The Patriots still have it going. The Packers still have thing going. There's a certain identity that comes with them. You expect
Sure.
a certain type of play. You expect a certain type of excellence. Well, the Redskins faded away from that, and I look forward to getting back to that. Hopefully.
Matthew McConaughey here on the Rich Eisen Show. So, are you a draftnik? You watching the draft? You're watching the combine?
I can't help but watch the draft. I'm watching the combine too, man.
You're watching the combine.
You asked me 10 years ago, you're going to be watching the NFL draft combine. I was like, no, I'm not. I don't give a damn about that. And sure enough, it's tuned in, and I'm locked into it and loving every second of it.
I liken it to the combine, to the Yule log, where you're staring at a fire on television for about 8 hours, and you're wondering, why am I watching it for this long? And you wind up humming the same tune the whole time.
But
it's like the Yule log of sports.
Somehow it's an interesting tune, and it continues to be. And then the draft is so much fun to watch now. And then also to hear people proclaim, I love the grades after the draft. Like anyone knows anything different, right? Well, I'm giving them an A-. I'm giving them a C. Well, let's see those. I'd love to see replays 10 years later of what those calls were.
Oh, it's not pretty sometimes, but you do need a few years to get that done. I am curious to ask you, what did you think of the Laramie Tunsil situation with the draft this year, Matthew McConaughey? What do you think of that?
Sad, and it pissed me off too. There's what he did, and it's in the video, and as we know today, the visual condemns people more than just the verbal fact. So he has a visual that comes with it, but the fact, what makes me kind of sick about it is it was a sabotage. I mean, somebody out there had it, planted it, and strategically said, I'm going to release this 13 minutes before the draft. I don't see anything that I like about that.
No,
that timing. That's pretty sick.
It really hurt him. Cost him
it really hurt
$13 million.
And it just says something about, social media today, which you can, we hear, people tweets wanting to pull them off all the time, but just that somebody out there, whoever that was, sat there and said, I'm going to screw this guy's big night up and brand him with a scarlet letter for the rest of his life, but I'm going to do it tonight. That was the thing, doing it on the big night when he's there with his mother and everyone's there with their mother. It's the greatest night of their life so far, but to plant that there, that is what was not necessary.
And then it was later on, his Instagram account was hacked, and somebody took a screen grab of an exchange between he and someone from Ole Miss that looked like he was not looked like he was asking for money. Looked like he was getting it too.
Well, look what he did. I mean, I don't know why he was allowed to get up there in front of the microphone afterwards and talk. I mean, fresh, the guy's breaking a sweat, and he basically just said, "I'm getting any skeleton in the closet out I have right now." He was like, "Was that me in the picture?" Yes, that was me smoking. And what about the money? Yeah, I took it. It was just like, I'm getting everything out now.
He might as well just have cleaned the slate clean. Like, in 8th grade I did this. Yeah. When I was a 5-year-old I did that. Now. Just get it all out there.
But you do hope like someone like that now goes and has a long, successful career. I mean, boy, that's a hell of a welcome to saying, well, welcome to big boy business. Mm-hmm. Whatever you did in college. And I'm sure he knows that was not a smart thing to do, and damn sure not smart to let somebody sit there and video you doing it. But welcome to big business. And how many millions of dollars did he lose?
13.
So he would have gone to Baltimore, admittedly, right?
Well, I mean, if we're just basically saying 3rd overall, because we knew that quarterbacks were going to go 1-2. 3rd overall for San Diego would have been the first spot he could have been taken. Right. So from 3 down to 13, where he wound up, the difference between that contract for the first life of a contract was $13 million.
Yeah,
that's how much he.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey here on The Rich Eisen Show. When we come back in 60 ticks of the clock, I want to talk about Free State of Jones and why you chose this movie.
Yep.
Chose to do it. And then talk a little Longhorn football.
Yeah.
Before setting you out on the road.
Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey right here, at McConaughey on Twitter, right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Back in a minute. The Oscar and Golden Globe winner for Dallas Buyers Club, the man who was nominated for an Emmy and stellar work in True Detective, now in the new film Free State of Jones, premiering June 24th. Matthew McConaughey here on the Rich Eisen Show. I assume at this stage of your career, I'm sure it's a safe assumption, you get all these scripts, you get people who want you to be in their films. You have pick of what you'd like to do. Why Free State of Jones? Right. Why this film?
I'm always looking for a character that I'm hoping that somewhere along the line of making the film or preparing for it, that I can get to a point where I feel like, oh, I'm the only guy that could do this. Doesn't always happen. Sometimes it happens earlier. Sometimes it happens later. Mm-hmm. I want to also be surrounded by a damn good story. This script came along, and I read it, and I was like, that should be made into a film, even if it's not true, even if it's fictional. But the fact was, it was true. A piece of American history I didn't know anything about, very important piece. And so I felt a privilege to be able to be part of sharing that story, something I think everybody should know. Besides that, just as a dynamic character, as a somebody who was willing to wage a war on his own ideals. I mean, literally wage a war, which he did. And somebody who wasn't afraid to die for those ideals. It had, hints of Braveheart to it. And he was a true American badass who lived by the Bible and the barrel of a shotgun. And, a great American, almost anti-hero, but a very heroic man that I was glad to do my best to inhabit.
A Southern man fighting an insurgency against the Confederacy during the Civil War.
During the Civil War.
In the South.
Yep.
In Mississippi.
Southeast Mississippi.
And then the story also tells about the Reconstructionist period as well, because all of us now in the 21st century, it's a crazy assumption. When the Civil War was over, let's just now all live together, and let's just all follow this new thing called every reconstructed United States of America. And
it was not that tidy.
No.
And it's still not that tidy.
No, it is not.
That's that sort of assumption's true. That was the assumption I even had until I got my history lesson working on this for 2 years. Things there were different versions of enslavement that happened after the war was over. There's the Klan uprising, black codes. A lot of things went back to how they were before. The North, the Union, got Civil War fatigue. Basically turned the back and said, we're tired. Went back north, and a lot of things went back to how they were before. This man, Newton Knight, continued to fight for the rights of African Americans long after that. He marched into town to vote. He joined the Union League. He lived in an all-interracial community. So he was defiant and fought. He, by that time in his life, I think he really understood, look, I cannot be free if my brother is not free. And that brother meant the family of man. It was not that tidy. I always like to say Reconstruction's a verb, ... And that's the interesting thing about this movie. It deals with that period of Reconstruction in a way that I've never seen another Civil War film do. And it's also the part of the film and the story that reminds us how relevant it is today.
And directed and written by Gary Ross, who first burst on the scene with Seabiscuit many, many moons ago.
Yep.
What is your favorite sports movie? Which one do you say that's
my
it?
Favorite sports movie?
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Run down a list for me.
Okay. I'll tell you what mine is. Should I tell you what mine is? Hoosiers.
Hoosiers is great.
You've got Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
You've got
Rocky. Rudy.
As you know, Rocky, I always like to say, I think is a love story.
Right.
It's about Rocky and Adrian. He just happens to be a prize fighter, trying to gain respect. There's Bull Durham. You want to go Bull Durham? There's Bang the Drum Slowly. You want to go old school? You go Brian's song. There's Remember the Titans. Raging Bull, if you want to throw that in there.
We Are Marshall.
Yeah.
Hey, I know that guy.
Who was in that one?
Who's that guy?
Nice.
Jack Lingle. Good on McConaughey.
That's a heck of a story, by the way.
I would say, look, I'd have to go for now. I'd have to say Hoosiers as well. There's some things like, I'm a golfer, and so I liked, there's Tin Cup and there's Bagger Vance. But those were sort of 12 handicapper golf movies. They weren't scratch golfer movies. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which basically the scratch golfer movie is the U.S. Open and the Masters.
That's it.
That's your real movie.
Yeah, but starring Jordan Spieth this year.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of movies, I'm going to come back to watching the real thing, which is why I think sports is hands down the best reality television going, and always has been.
You could say it's potentially the only good reality television that's still left.
It's outstanding.
Because Jordan Spieth, Texas guy, as you know, I mean, what he did this year at the Masters was something that people think is going to last with him. But when it comes down to it, you're a Longhorn football guy and obviously hoops. What do you think about the current state of the Longhorn football program?
I like where we're going. Okay. We're definitely not there yet.
Okay.
Look, Coach Charlie Strong came in and changed some things, and It has not been a great start on the win-loss record, but I think he's building something that can succeed. He's got the young men understand what they've got to do off the field as well to play for him. He's very clear about it. As he said, I think how many people, 10 players were dismissed that first year he was back, was it? And he was quite a few.
Oh, yeah.
And as he says, he goes, look, I didn't kick them off. I made the rules very clear. Mm-hmm. If they did not follow them, then they left the team. He's very clear about that. He also, I'm talking to a lot of the young men that are playing, they really want to play for him. They really, really, really want to play for him. And it's a lot of the reason they're coming to the University of Texas. Evidently, he's making a real good mark when he's talking to them. We're having a great recruiting class. We came on the last couple of years. We've been deep, as far as ratings. Then in the last day, here we come swooping up to the top 10. We'll see. But I like him. I like what he's doing with the program, and I hope it works out.
So I want to ask you before I let you go about True Detective.
Yeah.
And how mind-blowing it was. When you first got a script, how long did you have to soak in these soliloquies and these monologues?
Yeah.
How long what was that process?
Well, they came to me first for the role of Marty that Woody played.
Ah.
All right, and I looked at it and I understood why they came to me for that, but I went back and I said, you know what, the guy I cannot wait to hear what comes out of his mouth is this Rustin Cole guy. He's just arresting me every time I read something that comes out of his mouth. So I spent, the creator, Nick Pizzolatto, who wrote it, I spent, months and every single weekend going over these soliloquies. There, the interrogation room? Mm-hmm. We shot that in a day.
Oh.
28 pages. And I just had to amalgamize it into huge, just had 7 different bubbles. And what I do is I break it down. I used to do this in school. Just get to know understand the dialogue first, then I break it down to one sentence would trigger an entire thought that I would go off, and then I break it down to a word. So I'd have these pods, and I'd have like 8 words, and then break the word down to a letter, and I have 8 letters, and each letter sent me off into a 5-minute run-on, and then I'd get to the next one and connect the dots. And I remember that day we were in there for about 18 hours, and we had shot about 24 pages. They were like, everybody, we are wiped. Can we go home? And I was like, no, we're not going home. I'm finishing this. I'm in the belly of the beast. We're going to finish this now. They all stayed on, and we finished it late that night.
And where did the making little figurines out of pieces of the tin can come in?
He wrote that.
Okay.
That was written.
No, are you just somebody from?
Well, I'm cutting them over there, okay. But then
somebody puts
when we cut over there, here they come back, and then you cut back to me, and of course I'm owning it like I've just finished the last.
You just honed it perfectly, like in arts and crafts.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you were taking it in to assimilate it, though, what did you think of this writing that was coming your way, and that you were now able to, as an actor?
Well, it's great
do what
writing.
You did with
the writing's so good, I didn't feel like I had to act, so to speak. Rustin Cole was never soliciting someone to try and talk him into something. Mm-hmm. That was part of what was great about him. He was on an island. Feel sorry for you if you're living in his head. I mean, geez, oh man, what was going on in that man's head? But just to deliver it truthfully and actually look at this stuff and go, and I am a believer, but to look at that stuff and go, geez, man, he's got a point. Maybe that is true. Maybe it is all a flat circle. You know what I mean? So just to own it, deliver it as a hard truth, that understanding that these people may not understand it, that he's talking to the interrogators. And, what he's doing, he's interrogating them, as you know, by watching it. And so it was just great dialogue and made it, I didn't have to try to do too much or throw much lagniappe on it.
And would you ever consider going back to see what is going on in the life of Russ Cole?
Yeah, I would. I miss Russ Cole, man. I miss watching him on Sunday nights. I miss watching True Detective on Sunday nights.
Me too.
And I miss. I was a happy man while we made that for 6 months, because I was on my own island, and luckily my wife put up with me. And she said I was actually pretty nice when I came home. But yeah, I would. I've talked to Nick about it. It would have to be the right context, the right way. That thing, when I read it, I knew in 20 minutes. I was like, if I can play this guy, Rustin Cole, I'm in. So the thought of me going, people have said, well, what about you going from the big screen to the small screen? That used to be a little more of a sort of taboo kind of idea to do. Not anymore. Plus, if it's great quality, you're actually getting better quality dramas on the small screen today than you ever have been. A lot better than you get on big screen sometimes.
Well, I mean, you could also get into a character over 10 episodes that you couldn't get in
it was
2 hours.
450-page script. My biggest challenge with that was, remember the first 3 episodes, Rustin Cole's pretty subdued, but you see, things are boiling underneath,
something's
right?
Going on. Yes.
So I actually, 450-page script, I had to do that for whatever 160 pages, and I started to think after about 6 weeks, is what I'm doing boring? Is it flat? And I wanted to sort of jazz it up a little bit, and I said, no, McConaughey, have patience. You're about to become, Rustin Cole when he goes off the rails and gets back in the game and starts, going after the bikers. Trust that when you get that extroverted and that wild, that dynamic of you slowly boiling underneath right now will work, and I think it did.
And knowing the character, do you think he's a sports fan,
Rustin Cole?
Would he sit around and watch the Super Bowl? Would he sit around and watch any golf? Like, what do you think? Just knowing the character, would he sit there in the 50-yard line and root against the Cowboys?
No, Rustin Cole might have a little. He probably enjoyed listening to Joe Morgan on Sunday Night Baseball in the background because it kind of kept a nice low-level pulse across the room.
Fantastic. Hey, Matthew, thank you for doing this.
My pleasure.
Thank you for coming in. A huge fan of yours. Back to the Dazed and Confused days.
Oh, thank you. That was my first.
Oh, my gosh. And now Free State of Jones premieres on my birthday, June 24th, at McConaughey on Twitter.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.